Support for WCBU's On Deck comes from State Farm agent Aaron Kilgore. A Peoria native and active community member, Aaron offers both financial and insurance services to customers at their Sterling Plaza location. Information at aaronismyagent.com. This is WCBU.
A Supreme Court ruling is drawing more attention to the country's most vulnerable ecosystems. That's just one of the things you'll want to hear about to start your day for Tuesday, April 16th. I'm Colin Shope, and this is WCBU's On Deck. First on deck today, Peoria developers Gary Matthews and Monty Brannon will both serve time in prison. The pair were found guilty of various charges of mail fraud and money laundering by a jury late last year. Government prosecutors argued the pair misused millions of invested and loaned funds during the redevelopment of the Hotel Père Marquette and construction of a new Courtyard Marriott in downtown Peoria. Some of the money was funneled from hotel accounts to bank accounts privately controlled by one or both of the developers. Following a lengthy sentencing hearing Monday, Central District Judge Sarah Darrow sentenced Matthews to just over 3 years in prison and Brannon to 2 years. Matthews will also pay around $8.2 million in restitution to the victims, while Brannon will jointly pay $4.7 million. Matthews is 81 years old, while Brannon is 71. Darrow took the men's ages under consideration while determining the sentence, as the initial advisory guidelines eventually settled on by the court carried a minimum recommendation of almost 6 years. Matthews and Brannon are both ordered to report to prison on May 20th, and Darrow is requesting their incarceration at the minimum security camp in Pekin, but their assignment is ultimately up to the Bureau of Prisons. Here are some other stories we're following in the WCBU newsroom. Illinois lawmakers are moving to update the state's biometric privacy law after Facebook was sued under the law in 2015 when it tagged people in photos without their consent. And it's been a little more than a year since the Peoria City Council approved a $20 million funding plan for capital improvements at the Peoria Civic Center. General Manager Rick Edgar says the ongoing renovations and upgrades will refresh the 42-year-old venue. Plus, 3 Bradley University students are organizing their second march to raise awareness about sexual assault on college campuses on Wednesday. And the Illinois Senate passed 2 bills this week aimed at preventing minors from accessing vape products. Find more of these stories and all the details at WCBU.org. A U.S. Supreme Court decision last year stripping wetlands of most federal protections is drawing more attention to the threatened ecosystems and what states can do. WCBU's Cameron Cutinello visited the Imaquan Nature Preserve in nearby Fulton County to learn more about wetland restoration and the birds, fish, and reptiles which call Imaquan home.
Imaquan is now home to almost 300 species. The 6,000-acre site was completely drained in 1924 and was once the largest agricultural farm in Illinois. The Nature Conservancy purchased the property in 2000 and began restoring the original lakes and wetlands. Now it serves as a learning hub to find new techniques to help wetlands and wildlife thrive. Federal protections for wetlands were weakened by a U.S. Supreme Court decision in 2023. That decision didn't impact the Nature Conservancy, but instead hurts the equally important wetlands which can be found on farmland and private property across the state. That's according to Randy Smith. He's the Illinois River Project Director for the Nature Conservancy. He took me on a tour of the site and some of the projects they're testing.
Those are research opportunities and management opportunities that if we can be the guinea pig to figure out some different removal techniques or more efficient removal techniques, and then can use those techniques in other places and kind of expand that work. We're happy to do that.
One of those projects is from a Washington company called Whoosh. They're testing a machine at Imaquan which they hope will help manage invasive silver carp populations in the Illinois River.
It's an experimental fish ladder and fish sorting structure.
The machine uses artificial intelligence to identify fish as they travel through the fishway, which would be placed near dams and other points of travel. So far, it's mainly been used to assist salmon in getting past man-made dams. But in theory, silver carp could be held by the machine while other species would go free. Smith says silver carp has threatened many of the native species in the river and lakes at Emiquon. Some invasive plant life and birds have also established themselves at the site. Emiquon Nature Preserve is adjacent to the Emiquon National Wildlife Refuge, which can cause some confusion for visitors, but the two sites do often work together.
We're trying to become more formal in our management, in our cooperative management, having some established goals and things, trying to provide the best habitat for our target groups of species that rely on these places.
According to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, just 2.6% of Illinois' landscape is wetland, but more than 40% of species depend on that wetland habitat. That includes tens of thousands of migratory birds each year, who use it as a stopping ground during their journeys. Smith says many bird species follow temperature changes as they migrate.
A lot of those species are early nesters, and so that's part of it. They want to get to the breeding grounds. They want to establish those territories that they're going to defend. They want to find those best nesting sites. A lot of nesting ecology studies show that within a species, birds that nest earlier in the season typically have higher nest survival and higher nest hatching rates.
He says birds want to be in their nesting spot when the ice melts and the bugs emerge. In a year like 2024, where the weather warms up sooner, many migratory birds follow the food and leave sooner than usual. But some species only leave when the day gets longer, meaning they might miss the bug emergence. Smith says studies are underway to determine how that may impact populations. He says wetlands are crucial for many species to thrive. The U.S. Supreme Court decision rolling back Clean Water Act protections for wetlands allowed them to be destroyed without a permit. A bill proposed in the Illinois General Assembly would create a requirement for those permits again, at the state level. For WCBU, I'm Cameron Cutinello.
Now, before we let you go, today is a regular meeting of the East Peoria City Council. Those meetings start at 6 p.m. in council chambers at the Civic Building on West Washington Street. And that's all for today. You can subscribe to WCBU's On Deck podcast on the NPR app, Apple, or Spotify.